What's up, photographers? Today I want to talk about how to decide what type of photographer you want to be. When I first started as a photographer, I shot weddings because it was the easiest thing to get into. I called every studio in Los Angeles and I said, "Hey, do you need an assistant?" And none of them called me back. Except for one. No, one or two called me back, and actually, maybe a few called me back, but a couple of them were like, "You gotta call David Michael Photography. They're the biggest studio in LA," and at the time they were. And hi, Dave, if you're watching this, I doubt you are, but I worked with the guy David Fry, who kind of taught me a lot of what I know today. He also taught me what I didn't want to do. In other words, I saw what he did, and then I made my own. I made it my own. I said, okay, I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna take out this, and I'm gonna do my own style. Um, so I shot weddings for a while, but I never really loved shooting weddings. I love just people and documenting moments. I don't particularly love weddings because I don't really care for the whole industry behind it. I'm being very honest. I love the people that I loved all my clients. I just didn't care for like that industry telling them all this is how you need to do your wedding and that kind of thing. So it kind of was something I wanted to get out of, and in retrospect I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I did. But eventually I moved into shooting events, and I shot events because I love to just be present and document, and events allow me to do that. Also, event photography is very, I'll be honest with you guys, low. It doesn't take away my energy. I can go, be present, shoot, go home. It's an easy edit, and I'm done. Whereas shooting portraits and a lot of other types of work require more use of your own energy. And for me, I'm a professional photographer because I am a photographer. I didn't have the dream goal of just being a professional photographer. I like to create my own artwork, but I do love that I make money off that as well. But they are separate things. Let's keep that in mind. So, how do you decide what you want to do as a photographer? Now, first, I want to say maybe don't think you have to decide right away. I do think you should keep it in mind, but at least let's start with deciding what your goals are going to be. Are you getting into this because you just want to make money? If so, choose based on that. Don't shoot something you're not going to enjoy or don't shoot something you don't enjoy that doesn't pay well. If I were starting today from scratch, living in Los Angeles, and I had to become a photographer for money, which is not why I did it, I would choose to be a headshot photographer. Headshot photographers can make a lot of money. There's a lot of actors. You need one camera and one lens. You're likely not going to need a second lens even. You could make a whole living off one 85 millimeter lens. So that's an easy one to get into. Event photography or wedding photography, those are going to require a lot more gear to start you off. So that could mean multiple lenses, at least a 24 to 70 and 70 to 200, multiple memory cards, and probably multiple strobes. A lot of people are like, you cannot shoot someone's wedding unless you have a backup and blah, blah, blah. And I agree, you should have a backup, but don't let it stop you from pursuing this because you don't have that. These are people speaking to you from a high horse who already have all the gear, and I'm sure at some point they had to start out and they didn't have backups for everything. But to get around that, you can second shoot, and that's what I did. I mostly shot with another studio who gave me access to all their gear. So I brought my camera. I brought a lens or two starting out. I think I bought a 430EX flash for my Canon early on. But then I had access to all his lenses in his bag, and so I got to have experience shooting with like the 70 to 200, which I didn't buy yet, or whatever else. And slowly I bought more and more gear, and I built out my kit, and I started booking my own jobs, and that was my process for getting into, at first, wedding photography and portraits, and then eventually shifting into shooting events. So what else can you get into? Like I said, headshot photography, probably the easiest. Portrait photographers will probably tell you they have a full kit of lenses, but let's be honest, you could probably shoot a portrait session with a couple of lenses. I personally feel like I could totally do it with two lenses. I just bring several lenses because I like the options, but also as a photographer, I try to stay engaged with what I do. And one way is to experiment. So you do your safe shots, which maybe you do with a 50 millimeter, maybe you do it with your 70 to 200. It doesn't matter. Whatever your bread and butter is, you do it. But then you start to experiment. And that's pretty much what I would recommend. Start out, figure out the main lenses you want. You can do that by assisting another photographer. You don't have to go out and buy all of that, and take your time. And you're going to be able to do this if you're smart and you're not like me, who moved back to Los Angeles, and it was in the Great Recession, and I'm like, I'm just going to be a photographer. I can't find a job anyway, and this is what I always loved. And I didn't have a day job, and it was a struggle. And you have to take work. When you don't have a day job, you can't say no to work. But if you have a day job, you can be a bit more selective. And instead of planning, how am I going to make every nickel and dime I can, chart out a growth process. Like, think about how you're going to grow, or how you're going to explore photography and ultimately settle on what you want to do with it. But don't try to think you have to have all the answers either. I know it might sound like I'm contradicting myself. Think about these things, but go out and shoot with different people, and then you get exposure, and don't think you have to decide your fate right away. You're going to figure it out based off exposure to everything. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to like and subscribe. I think it's always important to know who you're listening to, so if you guys want to check out my work, mickmillman.com, and I mostly post my professional work, but I also have like a film section I post personal film work on, and you guys can see some of the projects I've shot throughout the years as well. Thank you guys for watching. See you soon.